What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, AM Coffee. Going to talk a little bit about Sauce Gardner and his seemingly inevitable new contract. There he is right there. A few other topics before we get into it. Want to remind you guys that the only way Badlands is able to do 50, 75, 100 or so podcasts every single month is thanks to our partner, Magic Mind, because I need that productivity hack, that mental shot focus in the morning. I have it every day. I've been having it for a while. I've been talking about it on this podcast for a while. It does not replace my coffee. Put it in the fridge. Tastes good. Goes well with the coffee in the morning. All natural ingredients. And if you use promo code JETS20, you will get 20% off. Or you could click that very handy link in our bio. Give it a shot. Magic Mind. If you don't like it, they have a money-back guarantee that you can take advantage, but you'll like it. And it's been something, again, that I've been a big fan of. So make sure to use promo code JETS20 and give it a spin today. Also, go with the subscription pricing as well if you can. That always makes it easier, so you don't have to always remember to refresh that order. Again, that's Magic Mind. All right, Sauce Gardner. Of the contracts that we think are likely to happen or we're hoping to happen, I do think Sauce feels nearer term, feels more inevitable. I think Connor's done a good job speaking to this consistently on our show that the money is just easier to sort at the cornerback position, and this position seems to move a little smoother when it gets to go time than receiver. I still think Garrett's going to happen. I think there's a strong incentive in that building to have Garrett be a foundational piece, and I think the feeling is mutual. That they want to get something done. It just feels like the Sauce one's going to happen first, and we're not going to get the concurrent dual press conferences that I'd love to have. Maybe we will, but it feels like Sauce is like in the next 10, 12 days, if not sooner, and Garrett's more like the next 30 to 40 days. I hope it doesn't drag really too much in the season. Let's talk about Sauce, though. I think when this happens, certainly fair to assume he will be the highest paid cornerback in the NFL, in NFL history. That's how these things work. He will edge out Stingley at the $30 million per year. He got 3 for 90. Maybe for the Jets, they do 3 for 91, 3 for 92. Maybe they just do a 4 for 121 or something. And that fourth year is just there for show. So they can say he's got an $100 million plus contract. I'm looking for like a little over 30 million per year. Maybe it's 31 per year. I don't know how much higher it crawls up than that, but he's the next guy to get paid. He's a 2-time All-Pro. He's coming off a year where he received a good amount of criticism, including from this podcast, for his play early in the season. That play got better as the year went on. He's really good. He's one of the best, if not the best, cornerback in football, depending on the week. He is just entering, if not entered his prime yet. He's getting an opportunity to now work with a new coach who I think will push him a little harder, and I think will move him around the formation a bit more to maximize his athletic ability, hopefully get him involved in a few more turnovers. And I think this is the right move for the Jets business-wise. On the field, off the field, I've been a strong advocate of paying both of these dudes, and it's not shocking, and it won't be shocking if Sauce ends up going first and this gets done in advance of camp really ramping up, because you saw what Horn got paid, you saw what Stingley got paid. It's not really much of a mystery what you're going to pay Sauce as a guy with his resume through 3 seasons. And, my guess on the reaction when this happens is people are going to have sticker shock at the number. Maybe I'm underselling it. Maybe this ends up being like 32 or 33 million per year. It'll be more than Stingley got, so it's going to be a huge number. And people are going to say, oh my God, how do you invest that much money to a player who's never been part of a winning team, who is not involved in a lot of turnovers, and who struggles tackling? And I get some of the initial reticence when big dollars are being thrown around. I do feel that we're overthinking it a little bit in that case, and there's nothing wrong with, not blindly thinking every Jet move is brilliant. They haven't even made this move yet. It's just a move that I find to be a necessity, because when you draft young players in the first round who perform to the standard that you could only hope for, again, 2-time first team All-Pro. That is not common for a cornerback this young, or common for a Jet player. And this is what you want of a lead defensive back, of a lead foundational piece of your team. You're not improving your situation or getting better waiting for him to walk. And if he was a total dud last year, unplayable, all right, it's a different conversation. He just wasn't to the standard he was his first 2 seasons and got better down the stretch. Yes, he needs to be a better tackler. Yes, you'd like to see him get his hands on the ball more. Teams are going to go away from him pretty consistently. I imagine that's still going to be a thing this year with Brandon Stevens on the on the other side of him. But Sauce, from an athletic standpoint, his size and speed and quickness, it's as elite as it gets. And you have to remember the player we saw for the entirety of his first 2 seasons and for chunks of last season, and not throw that away because he missed some tackles in the first half of the year and was a little handsier than you'd like. These are the kind of guys that you pay on the field. On the field, it is smart to invest in Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. The Jets have the financial flexibility to do so, then be a little more patient and decide how they want to handle AVT, John Simpson, further down the road, Jermaine, Will McDonald. They already have Quinnen taken care of. And the first two up are the guy who's been the All-Pro twice, and then the guy who you want to be an offensive foundational piece in Garrett Wilson, because receiver contracts are a little more complicated. So, off the field, the Jets just don't have a good reputation of handling these things smoothly or correctly, right? They draft talented young players. It seems like everything is going well, and then it just doesn't happen in the long term the way you want it to go back to. There's PTSD in that building, as there should be, from trading Darrelle Revis and inevitably watching him win a Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. Now, Sauce Gardner is not Darrelle Revis. No one is Darrelle Revis. But he's really damn good. And it stung the organization, as it should, that they traded him away when he was around the peak of his powers still. And even though they didn't trade him to New England, but he inevitably ended up there before he came back to the Jets. And they're not going to let that happen again. They're going to pay him. And you think through some of the other things. Leonard Williams, like, he was a first round pick. You kind of felt good about it. He ends up getting traded away. I'm not saying that was a bad move, but Jamal Adams, even, he's a guy who's an All-Pro. He's traded away. It was a great trade for the Jets, but they weren't going to pay him. And that was actually one of the smarter ones by Joe Douglas. Quinnen dragged out a little bit, and then they ultimately got it done. I feel like they probably even paid a little more than they had to because of how long they waited. It's very rare for the Jets to be able to roll out the appropriate positive story that we drafted this guy 4th overall. He was a 2-time All-Pro. We were ahead in getting this done and not letting it drag out, and he is going to be a face of the franchise going forward, ideally along with Garrett Wilson, and then ideally along with other pieces that you put around them. It sends the right message internally. They did this with Sherwood, a guy who played very well last year and is very highly thought of in that locker room. You could see, what his teammates voted for him to win last year in the internal team awards. And they got it done. And I think they wanted to send a message that if you do things right here, we're going to pay you. We're not going to let you walk and just constantly be on this treadmill of having certain young, talented players just come in and out of the door and have no, thoughts of consistency here. So I think this is going to happen. I think, 85% of the fan base is going to be excited about it, happy about it, have expected it. You'll get 15% of people who complain about it. I think with Garrett, probably 95.5 approval rating, depending on what the final numbers end up being. And I hope it's not too far behind Sauce. Maybe it ends up being, maybe it doesn't end up being. But I do think Sauce is going to be soon. Maybe this week, maybe the week after. Too much smoke, right? For there not to be fire on this one. And it just makes too much sense for both sides with where the Jets sit financially. And if you're Darren Muji and if you're Aaron Glenn, this is a good way to go into the season and to go external and go internal and say, we took care of Sherwood. Look at the leap he made last year. We took care of Sauce. We know what he's capable of. We took care of Garrett. We know what he's capable of. We want to build with this group, and then we want to, make strategic additions around it. Just feel like it's going to happen. And maybe that's foolishly naive because the Jets don't always deliver on things that you'd like to expect them to. But let's see how this next week or two plays out, because football is getting dangerously close and it's very exciting. And the Chargers are at camp already, having all the second rounders concurrently holding out, which is just not great when you Jets need their second rounder to be their week one starting tight end. Hopefully the dominoes start falling there. It's not like the Jets are on an island with this one, but they're not too far away from real practices. We're like two weeks or so here. So hopefully that one moves quick as well. You'd really love to show up day one of camp with Mason Taylor there, Sauce Gardner with his new contract, Garrett Wilson, with his new contract right there, not have any distractions, and then, turn the dials on a couple other portions of the roster where you hopefully can find a way to get better. And then it's, we start ripping into the preseason, and week one will be here before you know it, which means it's a great time to, as you're listening to this in the morning, enjoying your coffee, just go over to badlandstoj.com. You click on that, get that live show ticket for August 23rd, the day after the final preseason game. We're all hanging out at Stout Grand Central. We're doing a live show. We're doing some Jets Jeopardy. We're doing season preview. We're doing Jets Steelers preview. We're giving away and raffling away a ton of fun stuff that if you buy a ticket, you're eligible to win, inclusive of sweet tickets to an upcoming Jets game, inclusive of football, jersey. We have our friends from Budweiser kicking in some free beer that you can get on top of your open bar or with your cash bar ticket. I have a lot of different friends of the greater Badlands family in the building. So last I checked, we sold 94 or so tickets. So that's a lot of people. That doesn't count the 20 or so of us who will be there. So at a minimum, you're going to be hanging out with, 110, 120 Jet fans. They'll end up being more than that as we still have 6 or 7 weeks or so. So badlandstoj.com. Also think we're going to have some new merch hitting there sooner rather than later. Be a full week of content. Connor is rightfully taking a little bit of a vacation this upcoming week. Paul and I will knock out a pod and or War Room early in the week, and then CR is going to check in before the week hits and drop something very special extra on the feed for War Room. So you will hear from him from this week as well. We'll, of course, have all of our other normal stuff flowing through. Once we hit August, and we'll better organize this and socialize it out, we'll have our in-season schedule, which will have a couple additions to it, which is exciting because just what we need is more content, right? There's not enough episodes, but it's a different kind of schedule, obviously, once we get into training camp and preseason and the regular season, and you're going to have multiple shows a week, 2-3 shows a week, of course, from Connor and myself, additive episodes from me solo. You'll have episodes from Paul and Jake and Paul and Meegs and Will and Dan and some other friends. So we're going to be busy. Zach will be back with Flight Plan. We're going to have it flowing. And I'm also excited. I've been joking around the Discord, calling it Expand Land since I did my last Business in Badlands pod, but we have some help flowing on the marketing front, some help soon on the social media front, and a couple other things that are going to be helping us grow. So if you don't follow us on social, make sure you also be on the Patreon. Check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and X, and soon enough TikTok, and all those good places where people post content beyond our core Patreon. So I'm curious if I end up doing a Sauce emergency pod this week. Feels like it's going to happen. I think they're probably just waiting until Connor gets settled on the beach, and then it will happen. And we'll have to fire up the mics. I don't expect any crazy surprises with the numbers. Keep an eye on that 30 million mark and how high above that 30 million per year mark they go. Do they have 4 years? Is it just a 3-year, stitch on like they did with Stingley? We'll see, but we have a rough idea of what it's going to shake out to be, and would be some nice vibes going into the season, especially if they can do part 2 and get Garrett Wilson done. Football is very close, my friends. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Another big week of content coming. We'll talk to you soon.